So just to read out a few, we have people from Georgia, from Switzerland, from Serbia, Austria, Portugal, Spain, Slovakia, Romania, Germany, Moldavia, Lithuania, Russia, Montenegro, Czech Republic, Latvia, Finland, Italy, etc., etc. And let's build on top of that, because I think this is something unique, not as a loose poll, but if you put that together, this is something very, very interesting when we talk about today nation as a service. You probably don't have a fucking clue what that means. Hopefully that evolves over time. But let me quote out, and this is important, you should actually go where you're treated best. So what do I mean by that? I said yesterday, I always like to share something personal, and this is actually the town where I grew up. Like cliche pictures of a German small village, right? And this is where my family used to live, like, I don't know, since the 1700th century. And according to Wikipedia, once at the time, that building in the upper right, my family actually owned that building before they got insanely poor and lost everything, just before you say, who's that rich prick? And it is actually interesting, because the default mentality that some of us have is that we stick at places and we don't move, and families do that quite often, even if the circumstances in the surrounding are horrible. Because, as you can see there in the picture, the second last picture, that coal miner, they actually destroyed every village around it, so the only village that is still there is actually that small village, that small town. And people don't move. And even don't move with very simple things, that they don't go on holidays for just paying $300 or $500 to go fly I don't know where. Because flights are getting so cheap, you can basically get everywhere for a cheap dime, right? So the question is, why are people stuck in a default mentality like that? The interesting part, if you look at the original settlers in the US, I mean, this is something unique. It is noteworthy that it was not about a westward expansion, but that the settler were actually not only moving from something, they were also moving towards something to find something new. The question is, how many of you actually had the dream I had to move to the US somewhere in time? I see a couple of nods, a couple of hands. The thing is, do you still fancy that, besides political situation and all of that? No. Yeah. A lot of people love Trump. The thing is, I would never ever do it. It's an absolute mess, because you're so dependent on the country as soon as you are a citizen from that country, because no matter where you live, you actually have to pay your taxes to the US. There's some exceptions, but usually you are actually hooked up to them. And great America, if you look at things like, it's a stable country, right, and everything is solid. You look at things like that, Lehman Brothers, 2008, financial crisis, total disaster, total mess. A lot of people actually lost their investments, opportunities, hope, wishes, etc. So what do you think, where is this country at? It's a lot of ATM machines. Kinda. I heard Singapore. I heard Singapore because the interesting part about Singapore is actually that unless the US, who even shut down 8 branches, 8 banks in 2017, and we're not talking about a year within the financial crisis, Singapore actually never had that issue. Their pockets are actually full of money, and they never shut down a banking branch. And the thing is, the myth of an almost nearly perfect place, and maybe you live in a country who on some listing got ranked like the #1 country for blah, 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 Monocle magazine, or I don't know. I tell you it's rubbish, because you will never find one country that is absolutely good in all of the things that I've listed there: running a business, get a job, invest, raise a family, etc. That country doesn't exist. And I'm sorry, it might be again, like, what's the German guy saying? Like, I mean, Germany is like a stable thing. Just to share some insights, I actually live in Munich. It's a fucking expensive place when it comes to rent, etc. And Germany as a whole, if you ever wanted to start a company in Germany, it is horrible. It is so complex and complicated. You don't want to do that. And I'm quite sure, and I know that at some of your countries you're at, it is far easier, far better to actually do those kind of things. So even Germany is definitely not perfect, right? And you have to decide actually what is your top priority for your business, for your family, etc. I can't do that right now, but I can show you like a framework how you can make those decisions and how you can have a value proposition against competitors, etc. So last time in the first model, I was actually explaining you the shift from a long-term employee with a stock image there. The freelancer actually shown there is a real person. And you all know within agency land that within the last year, if you're actually a good freelancer, you are always booked. So it's quite something nice, right? On the other hand side, on the right hand side, this is what I would call a super freelancer. It's also a good friend of mine. I said that he actually still has founded a couple of companies. He's actually flying throughout Asia and living with his team somewhere spread out, and he's just living on a fancy beach, etc. So where I want to push you now at, let's put that more to an extreme, because this is what is already happening, and we went through the statistics and numbers of all of that previously. So it is actually existing, and it's quite, when you look at companies like WeWork, etc., it's quite successful. So I want to talk with you today first about a perpetual traveler. And this is someone I really, really fancy, not visually, but anyway, it's Howard D. Schultz. Don't mix him up with the CEO of Starbucks, who has a similar name, right? And he wrote a book somewhere in time, early 70s, What the Prudent Investor Should Know About Switzerland and Other Foreign Money Havens. And let me explain that in a second, what he actually defined. Not only in that book, he wrote a couple of other ones. And there are some other great people I should mention. So it's not something new. It's Adam Starchild, and he wrote a book like The New Zealand Immigration Guide by Adam Starchild. I never figured out who actually did the illustrations there. I think they kick ass. So what is a perpetual traveler? A perpetual traveler, at its most extreme, is someone that is actually stateless. So you don't belong to any specific country. I know, because I got a lot of shit of very close friends, because that person that I talked with used to be actually stateless, not because of his own decision, but he was in a situation where he became that, so he gave me all the crap. I'm talking not about the ethics here, I'm talking about the methodologies and the advantages of that if you do that on purpose. There might be other reasons why you fall into that situation. And Harry D. Schultz actually defined already, I think in the 60s, the free flag theory, which basically are free flags that you can put on a map, and you can actually decide where you want to hold a passport and your citizenship, where you want to have your business base, and on the other hand side, your residence, the business base, and the third one is your playground. just explaining that you don't have to live in the country where you have a citizenship, while on the other hand side you live in a beach island, I don't know, where your playground is. Because where your citizenship is, it could have other advantages like tax advantages, while on the other hand side, it looks like a shithole, and this is why you want to be at your playground on a beach. The interesting part is, since I said it's from the 60s, that actually progressed a lot further, because W.G. Hill, he was the one who coined the term flag theory, and he expanded and added 2 more flags, which the first edition was about asset management and repository. So where do you actually keep your money and your investments? And the other one is the residency and domicile, which is a different thing than a playground. And I give concrete examples in a second that this is not bullshit from the 60s. This is actually quite tangible. And it got expanded. I mean, there are different directions where this goes. Currently, I like the approach of a 10+4 flag approach. Just to read out a couple of them. We will not deep dive into all of them. But I will tell you, you all have a benefit on each individual flag. Some of you more, some of you less at a specific one, but I guarantee you, then you are actually better at another flag. And to read them out once, a good citizenship in a country where foreign income is not taxed is the first one. Then permanent stay in a tax haven. So those are the ones that we actually had previously. A good place to do business and your income. Good bank accounts, assets in selected countries. Good marketplaces where you can buy cheap. Distribute online company structure in good countries. Medicine tourism. Outsource employees, work processes for a company to good countries. Insurances and privacy solutions. So why does it say +4? Those +4 flags are in particular important if you have like a family, for example. You might have different circumstances, so you might put different flags towards different countries. But let's concentrate first on the 10 flags. I know that you read the Panama Papers and stuff like that, or have heard about that, and it comes immediately to mind that it's just large corporations who do those shady things, right? Or the super rich, like, if you're not familiar with the terminology, ultra high net worth individual is basically people who have a net worth of above 30 million. So cash, right? Just to spend. I'm not talking about those people because this will get commoditized. And we can see it however we want from an ethical perspective. The Panama Papers is actually quite funny because of reasons like what Apple did through the double Dutch Irish sandwich. I'm not going into that detail what it means, but basically you pay 0 tax in the end, and the US was complaining about it. While everybody of us, if you have a tiny company, we can go to Delaware actually, open a company if you're not from the US, and put all our cash there and get all the tax benefits. That's still really cool, right? So they don't blame that. Or if you go to the UK, you can go to Jersey or the Isle of Man to do your business there. Some of you might do. But as I said, we are thinking about very differently how you set up your company and what kind of benefit you have within your country or as an individual. And I sensed yesterday that you want to open something probably new, a new company, and I can help you actually to set that up, that you really differentiate. So let's look at how you can actually plant flags when it comes to business or assets, wherever it fits you best. And there's like a strategy behind that. It's called the EKG formula. E stands for enhance your personal freedom, K for keep more of your money, G for grow your money. And it's like a procedure. You probably first want to achieve enhance your personal freedom, and there are a couple of things like that I mentioned before, like a second passport, living overseas, digital privacy, socializing overseas, maybe if you want to get to know someone, etc., etc. So it's all those personal belongings that I would say each of us actually have. On the other hand side, keep more of your money. I didn't say it before, but it's shit if you put like on a bank account in Germany, if you just deposit money, right, you get like 0.01% of interest rate. While the inflation is far higher, so you actually lose money. That's shit. So the last point is grow your money. Not losing money, we're even talking about growing your money, and this is all what we want to do, right? We want to scale. We have to do that because otherwise, as John mentioned before, we will get cannibalized on our existing business model, and somebody will kill us. We can't expand, we can't scale, etc. As I promised, I'm not going into each of the 10 flags with concrete examples, but let's start somewhere. And I think this is crucial for any one of you. As I stated out, this can be about your private situation, like where do you want to deposit your money, or it could be against your company. If you look at, for example, again, Singapore, from 2008 to 2012 is what it used to be actually very, very still easy in comparison to what's happening after that, after 2012, to open a bank account in Singapore. They got way more picky on that. Before, you could just take a flight, open a bank account there, get better rates, etc., get better circumstances to do an international business. This is not possible anymore. Or on the other hand side, they get really picky on anti-money laundering laws, like know your customers, so basically getting all the information about you. They get picky. You originally should be more like a high net worth individual, so owning more than 1 million cash, the investment amount is higher, etc. So it gets very exclusive, more to the pictures that I've shown previously where you have that super rich person flying in a private jet. So, as I said, I think a couple of people in the room know that. Yeah. Can you reveal what country that is? No, it's not Estonia.
It's my country. Georgia.
It's Georgia, exactly. Georgia. I think Georgia is specifically interesting because the bank solvency is 12.8%, which basically means it's a very good margin of safety. And you can actually we can all book a ticket for cheap probably, and we can open a bank account without a big fuss. Usually it takes like 20 minutes to open a bank account without doing a complicated KYC form process, without having the regulatories like a GDPR, which is great for an end customer because you can basically get information from different bank accounts and things like that, without going too much into detail. But that also means that a government organization, that probably a competitor where you once gave the data to, that they have access to that. And we have heard yesterday examples in the last talk how sensitive a data topic can actually progress. So this is great, I think, on its own. But the interest rate, let's first stick with the regulations, because not only the GDPR, the American equivalent called the FATCA is also not. America can't get access to your data there, and this is interesting because those are the countries who actually have either GDPR or FATCA in place, where actually other governments have access to, if they force it, if they want it, if you're a suspect or whatever. And let me tell you, it's nearly, I think, all of Europe in there, and even places where you thought like, hey, wow, this is super safe. That's probably like the Bahamas or whatever. They're all part of that. I'm not pushing any shady things here, but if you have ever heard about something called Aadhaar in India, it's basically a digital identity that you get from the government. Used to be quite cool, right? It's a digital form. You don't have to do it if you register on one government service to the other. It's great. You don't have to do it 20 times, etc. Then they opened it to third parties, so whenever you ordered something, you could actually commit your identity. Do me a favor, look it up on Google or whatever search engine you prefer, and it's a total mess. It's a total mess what kind of information the government actually gets and what kind of information the third party gets. So I'm just saying, I like the approach that Georgia is doing there. I like it a lot. I hope we don't get too much under pressure to actually become a part of that. And there's a second thing that I really, really like. And you can slap me of that. There's risk in that. Within Europe, you usually have, like, if you deposit like up to 100,000 euro and the bank goes up in flames, theoretically, the government jumps in and pays you back. Theoretically, because what happens if a government actually is under pressure, because it happened a couple of times with multiple banks, and they're not even capable of paying the people back, right? You don't have that in Georgia, so maybe you lose your money if it goes all up in flames. That's a risk. But on the other hand side, if you invest or deposit your money in Georgian lari, you have basically, those are the numbers from, my eyes are getting quite bad, from 2009, I would say, to the current date. And the interesting part is that you have an interest rate of 4 to 11% in Georgian lari, measuring against the inflation currently at 3.1. This is fucking more than the 0.01 that you have in Germany. And even if you put your money there in in euro or in US dollar, you usually have like 1 to 3%. 1 to 2%, sorry. And just giving you again the German example, these are the top interest rates for the German banks. I think the first couple ones nobody knows, who have the 0.68. Nobody's using that crap. Actually, the bigger ones, like number 74 Sparkasse Dortmund with 0.03%. As I said, you're losing money. You're losing money. And if we look deeper into that, the yearly inflation in Germany, you have it here. As I said, you're losing money. And now it comes to the opportunity, and I think some of the countries don't see that so far. Others do. Again, I think it is great that a government like Georgia understands that for an entrepreneur, not only for the private savings, a bank account in Georgia is quite appealing. And I have one example from TBC, Neobank. Unfortunately, I think they didn't get it up until now. I think it's a good new challenger or neobank. But on the other hand side, they don't offer me a product. I want to have that product. Because I can then deposit all the stuff and have access to my money on my phone, etc., with a better interest rate, etc., etc. They're not doing that right now, and I spotted that they have so far 13 employees. They're part of a huge, huge bank in Georgia, and I don't think they understand the value proposition over time. And we need people like Diana, who's actually from Georgia, working for a bank. We need people like Volker, who is working for a Georgian bank, to actually hopefully push that. The second example, and it still reminds me of Blade Runner, is actually, again, somewhere in the, on the Asian market. It's Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, like a couple of years back, used to be the thing where you could just call, please open a bank account. Obviously, since the last 20 years, they shut that down. And it used to be super, super difficult on actually opening a bank account there. And this is crucial for products like this, because they now have a new regulation, which is very interesting for virtual banks who now open a new challenger bank in Hong Kong. They got currently about 50 companies who want to do that within Hong Kong. And you can, if you look at the App Store now, you can probably see that there's a company called Neat, where you can now, from out of your pocket, open a bank account in Hong Kong. And more interestingly, because I said we have an entrepreneurial spirit here, and if you want to build something that is on a global scale, you can actually do that as well, because they have a very nice product that is heading towards small and medium enterprises called Neat Business. And what you can do there, it's quite smart. If you have a global business and you ever ran into the difficulty of payment towards different countries, so like an e-commerce store or whatever, they actually manage that you can do international business out of that country to whoever country that is for PayPal payment, Amazon, Stripe, etc., etc. On top of that, I'm talking about that in a second, they do automated accounting. That's not what I wanted to say, but anyway, pay invoices and employees. If you have a global workforce, you can pay them from that account. That would be impossible if you would open a bank account in Germany, and it would be super complicated, expensive, etc. You can do that out of Hong Kong, from your pocket. If you're sitting on a beach, you can do that immediately now. I mentioned on that flag previously about how to store your assets in selected countries. So, okay, I gave you one example that was about banking. But on the other hand side, this might not be the safest, if you see that more for your personal belongings, the safest approach. Do you know where this is actually now happening? Venezuela, right? So probably he's buying with that money a little bit of chewing gum if he gets it for that amount of money. So inflation is what happened, obviously, to Venezuela right now. And I don't want to put my tin foil on and be like the overdramatic, I don't know, the world is going to an end scenario thingy. But I still personally fancy things like the gold standard, which probably ended, I think, somewhere in the 30s. So what does it mean? Every fucking country can now actually print the amount of money, or even pretend, a bank, that they own that amount of money, whatever is needed. If they need more cash, they're going to print it, or they assume that they have that money. It's still regulated, that you have like a 1% or whatever as a bank, as a backup. But if something like that happens, you're totally fucked. Why am I saying you should consider that? And I'll show you some possibilities how you can change that within your business. There are two companies that I fancy. One of them is bullionvault.com. You can go to the App Store, you can download the app, you can buy physical gold there. And what they basically do is they store physical gold in Zurich, in Switzerland, in Liechtenstein, or in Singapore in a highly high safety vault for a tiny amount of money. And everybody of us can actually do that. It's not for the super rich anymore. The interesting part, silver bullion, is the equivalent. It is actually a startup. They're actually quite huge, out of Singapore. And the huge difference is that they store the money in Singapore, like Bullion Vault, but they run under Singapore jurisdiction. So I'm making up the scenario here. If you want to store your money, you can actually do it with Bullion Vault. But if actually a government says, that happened to Greece, right? I mean, they actually cut off the accounts, the bank accounts. What if they would say, like, we cut off that you actually own gold, right? I tell you, with silver bullion, you don't run into any issues because it's under a Singapore jurisdiction, and to actually make them move is quite difficult. On the upper side, if you would run a company in Europe, the pressure would be very different. Those are things that are available right now. You can also download and get that nice credit card, which is called Glint, and you basically pay in gold. So they do the transaction to gold. You can pay with a credit card, and in the end, the deduction goes against gold, if you believe into that. So for safety reasons, I think like the gold examples are quite interesting. Even if the gold price is now going down, thanks to Trump, you should buy now. And opening a bank account for global business, this is something that we actually tackled in the first flag. Let's look into the second flag. And I expanded that a little bit because we covered that a little bit in the first module. So, sorry, I should point out the flag. A good place to do business and your income. We now have the money deposit covered, right? Our flag, I gave some examples. Where do we want to run our business? And I still believe, as one example, Estonia is doing great because they opened a couple of years back, a bunch of years back, they actually digitized the whole government infrastructure. So as an Estonian, you could use that, but then they opened it to the public. So for 100 bucks, you can basically buy Estonian e-residency and start your business there. Interesting part is if you want to grow that, you can do that for 0% tax. If you take money out, etc., because you have to pay yourself or some other employees, it depends on the tax, on the local tax, so you still have to do that, but it's still less. And if you want to grow your business, great. So to show you one video.
While some countries push people away, Estonia pulls them in. What kind of problems can e-residency solve for an entrepreneur? Say you're a freelance writer in Ukraine and you need to receive international payments. E-residency enables it. Or maybe you run a startup in India and need access to cross-border capital to help scale internationally. E-residency allows it. What if you're a digital nomad or expat and want to run your company after you move to a different country? E-residency is the answer. You might be outside the EU, but want a trusted company registered inside the world's largest single market. E-residency can make it happen. Or if you're already an EU citizen, but you want to lower the cost and hassle with administrating your company, e-residency makes that possible. Maybe you have multiple board members all over the world. E-residency means board decisions and contracts can be legally approved online instantly. Whatever your nationality, whatever your situation, applying for e-residency is the best way to run a global EU company fully online with minimal costs and hassle. Apply for e-residency today and join our new digital nation. e-resident.gov.ee.
For 100 bucks. And question is it a shady business to set up your business there? I mean, according to our dear beloved German Chancellor Angela Merkel, it is not, because she became an e-resident, right? I don't know if you trust her, by the way. Anyway, don't do your bank account in Estonia. It's not worth it, I think, but run your business there from a jurisdiction perspective. And it's quite successful when you look at the growth. They predict like 14.4 million that it already brought to them, and that it will be 1.8 billion business-wise until 2025. I think it's quite impressive, especially when you look at the GDP of Estonia currently. I didn't share that last time. Let's push that further. If you want to set up your company, there are also services like Autonomous, and Autonomous is a company that does the whole jurisdiction to set up a company for you. So they cover actually to set up the company, to set up the legal structure as well, to actually do the taxes and everything like that out of one website, autonomous.com. And you have different demands. As you can see here, if you click on all, you can do a Delaware C Corp, a Wyoming LLC, a Curacao Foundation, etc. But in that case, I wanted to do like a blockchain-ready company. Then you only have a Delaware C Corp or Wyoming LLC. If you want to, let's say, run an e-commerce store globally for digital goods, you have like the Hong Kong Limited, etc. Let's go into detail there. So it's a one-time setup, and again, all the legal stuff is covered by that. You can actually decide as an add-on if you want a fiat bank account. If you don't know what a fiat bank account is, real cash, real currency. Or if you want a crypto account, I think it's not in the screenshot. If you actually want to set up the corporate nominee director, because sometimes you need a legal person in that country, they actually help you to set that up and have a dedicated person who does the signings for you. If you want to be anonymous, you can actually do that. And you end up in a price package with a pay-as-you-go service, in that case, of about 1,000 bucks. I didn't click all of it if you do the math. You can do that from a website. The reason why people do that, again, it doesn't have to be a shady thing. It's always what you make out of it. If you want to do an ICO for blockchain-related companies, lots of our governments are actually so slow to actually solve that from a lawyer perspective, from a regulative perspective, that it's just not possible to do that. There are places like Zug in Switzerland who are doing that great. Estonia is pushing that especially, but you don't have any other chance than to go to another country to actually be legal. because governments are fucking slow. Now the scary part. Outsourced employee, because you have set your flag for your bank account, you set up your company, now you need people. And outsourced employees or work processes, this is what most of the times comes in mind. So cheap labor, bad quality, very poor working conditions, etc., etc. By the way, I don't believe quality is necessarily bad, because that would assume that people don't learn in bad countries and get fucking educated. And I think for quality, probably, I can't say for a picture like that, but in general, if we would assume like, why is a graphic designer or a coder or whatever worse than any other country, that would be plain stupid. No matter if it's the Philippines or whatever. And if you have ever looked at platforms where you can actually hire talent through that, there are some very talented people there. And we shouldn't forget that you don't have to live in your country. You can also move to another country like Ubud and in Bali, and you can be one of those workers because your conditions, your daily costs are way lower. You can cut down that cost, you can be that skilled worker, and you can be on that bench that actually gets hired by others for a cheaper price. So if you complain locally in your country, but that other person is actually working for less, go fucking somewhere where it's cheaper, where you have a better life, and you can offer your service for a cheaper price. This is Rome, by the way. Very nice to get a membership card. I think you pay, it's written there, 500 a week. You get some nice yoga classes, you get the community, you can actually sleep there, hotel room, super nice pool, etc. And you can actually fly from one place to the other just with that membership card. You don't have to pay additional fees. So you can actually have that lifestyle that you hop from one location to the other. And you can actually have that lifestyle when you compare Chiang Mai, which is famous with digital nomads when it comes to as a hangout place, so quite talented people are there. In comparison to London, I just looked up some numbers, excluding rent, because if I would rent in London, you know that the difference would actually explode. So you can actually do that, you can be a worker like that, and you can find them there. How do you find them? There are a couple of platforms like Clarity, Code Mentor, Upwork, Fiverr, etc., which you can also download in the App Store. I said it now a couple of times. And you can hire talent there. Still, there's shitty talent there as well, right? If you don't pay, I don't know, $10 and you want to pay $3 instead an hour, right? It's like with everything else, it might be shitty. If you even take the cheaper price and push it more down, it might be shitty, right? But on the other hand side, who guarantees us, if we are a client, if we go to an agency, that everybody in the team is actually top-notch? You have some smelly acts in there as well. And you have to figure out who is actually the right talent. So now we find the talent, and I want to talk with you about a good citizenship in a country where foreign income is taxed differently. Because we have a better interest rate, we set up our company at a better condition, but if we now want to cash out that money for our own salary, and we have to pay those taxes. Usually in Germany, I don't know if you know that, but if you add all the different taxes that we pay for your car, for actually buying something in the shop, etc., you end up with 75% of taxes that you're paying as a whole. Usually we have in mind like a 30 to 40% because it depends on our earnings that we pay and it's done, but you end up with 75%. And I'm telling you, there are other countries who can actually do a lot better. What's the strategy on that if you want to get a second passport? First one, the lucky sperm club method. It's quite difficult. But if you're a lucky one, and let's assume you're actually born in Germany and in Switzerland, so the best of EU and non-EU for some, not for me. Hey, lucky, you have a dual citizenship. And by the way, if I'm talking about a dual citizenship, because there are some countries who actually forbid that. Not only the US and a couple of others. The thing is, if you should consider if they say forbid, it doesn't say if you have a second passport, you go to jail. It actually says that you're still seen as a US citizen and you have to pay the taxes because it's on their soil. It doesn't mean you go to jail because you're on a second one. The second method is the sit back and relax method. You somehow sneaked into a country and it's great and you do a good job, and then can be in New Zealand, like for example, and over time you actually achieve to get a citizenship. That takes a long, long time. That's fine. It's a good approach. Or you can do the pay your way in method. And again, this is something actually that gets commoditized. We're not talking about the super rich. I will give you a couple of examples in a second. This is something that is really, really interesting. And I can also already tell you that I would really be keen on going the Fonsi method to actually have a second citizenship for Serbia. I think this is a very interesting place to actually have a second citizenship because of travel. Also to China, for example, you don't need actually a visa if you have a Serbian citizenship. A lot of people don't know that. And this is definitely something that I would crave. And the Fonsi method is actually you bring something to the table because you're a super athlete that I'm not, and you get that in advance. So maybe if you're like the super, super, super smart brain, you take the Fonsi method. Let's look at the sit back and relax method. So to give you some examples, if you actually pay $5,000 towards Panama, you actually get the first seat, and over time you don't have to stay there, because with some countries you have to be there like I don't know how many days to actually become a citizen over time. Within Panama you have to be there like 1 or 2 days a year, and you are in the process of actually becoming a citizen over time. Paraguay is another one, 1 day per year where you have to stay there. You have to learn some Spanish and some knowledge about the Paraguayan culture, but that's about it. And from a text perspective, it is super interesting. I'm talking about an idea. I'm not talking about necessarily, I like Paraguay, I really like it, I like to be there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to live there. I'm talking about a second citizenship. And I can tell you, if you stay more than 183 days outside of Germany, and you actually can prove that you don't live in Germany, you don't have a house here, you don't have an apartment here, you actually said goodbye to your friends because you did a goodbye party and all that crap, then you don't pay German taxes. In other countries it's different, right? You have to check that. But it is interesting that we have that possibility of a second citizenship. Not all of the countries have that. There are some exceptions. Austria, for example, I think it is not allowed, but again, you can still have it. You're not going to jail. But they see you as Austrian tax citizen. With most of the countries, like Montenegro, and I've seen like one of you is from Montenegro as well, you pay usually about 9% taxes with that, which is amazing, amazing. Get the entrepreneurs in, and you know, I think there's really a lot of potential to grow there. The pay your way in method. Still expensive. You can, for example, go for the Comoros Islands and basically pay around $60,000. You can invest into real estate. You can donate it. If you usually invest into real estate, you get a crappy real estate, so it's probably even easier to go through all the circumstances that you just donated to actually get that citizenship. You can go to Dominica, a Caribbean island with very nice beaches, and the cheapest possibility is around $100,000. Or you could pay $1 million to actually get the citizenship for Malta, which is also very nice from a tax perspective. So since you have now, and it's obvious, I mean, you don't have to put all your flags. It depends on your comfort zone. I started with that, and that takes time to do that, and you have to actually find the places that are still achievable, that you can work against, that you fancy, etc. But medicine tourism, on the other hand side, is something interesting, because I personally didn't do that so far. I should. because one of the original clinics, like Bumrungrad, I don't know, in Bangkok, Thailand, they were one of the first clinics where you could actually fly in. And it's like for the mass market, it's not for the elite or for the super rich. And you have like trained medicians from the US, the UK, wherever you want to pick your fancy medical institution, and you can go there for a cheap dime and actually take care of your health. And to push it further, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Prince Court Hospital is really great. I'm out of the essential mail. This is one of their care packages. You can go to the website and actually book it. I'm already too old for that, so let's go for the real deal here. So this is the package that you can get there for a fucking good checkup. It costs actually 1,800 Malaysian ringgit, which I had to look up, I have to admit. It's 373 euro that you pay there in cash.
What's the web address?
It is, look up for Prince Court. Sorry, I should have put it in. But you will get that. You will get the URLs. So again, this is just an excerpt of the 10 different flags, but you probably have that feeling. So what kind of companies could we actually build out of that nonsense? Is that for real? Because I showed a couple of bits and pieces, and it could be crap and just a lie, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I only have one example, I can add more, but are you familiar with dropshipping business as one example? I see some noddings, but it's actually quite easy. You build a website, you sell a product in its most easy form. Somebody wants to buy it. Wow, super innovative, right? But in that moment, you actually just take the product from the supplier. It could be AliExpress in China, and you just resell that product, and you take up like a 50% profit. Shopify, for example, that's one example. The other one who drives that even further, if you can build up your Shopify shop and actually do that, just pick the existing stuff from AliExpress. Don't do anything, don't add anything, don't do graphic design, I don't know, just pick it, do a proper analysis, and you can pay people on Fiverr for about 50 bucks to actually do that, and resell it, and you will make cash. Super complicated business model. And then you could do use a service like Amazon FBA.
Your e-commerce business. You've got a great product. You're busy handling all the things that make your business run, fulfilling customer orders, providing customer service, generating sales, sourcing product, and trying to grow. What if we told you there was a service that can make maintaining it all easier and could help you find new customers at the same time? We wanted to call it Make More Money and Grow Your Business Fast and Save Time and Delight Your Customers by Amazon, but the logo is too big. Fulfillment by Amazon, or FBA, makes your products more visible to millions of loyal, happy Amazon customers while providing the world-class fulfillment, fast shipping, and acclaimed customer service that can bring your business to the next level. Here's how it works. You simply send your inventory to Amazon's state-of-the-art fulfillment centers located close to your customers around the world. Your products will be stored securely, and you can send us as little or as much as you want. When you use FBA, your products listed on Amazon become eligible for Amazon Prime and free Super Saver shipping, so more of your customers can get what they want fast and free, and more of our customers can become your customers. When customers buy your products, Amazon will pick, pack, and ship them, and will also manage customer service and even returns 24 hours a day. Our technology works for you behind the scenes, so you're free to focus on growing your business locally and globally. Not only are you continually selling, FBA will help you reach customers around the world with the click of a button. You can even use FBA to fulfill sales.
I like promotional videos. To recapture, I mean, what happens here? Let's assume you have a skilled worker who can actually help you out to figure This is the demand on Amazon in country XYZ. You can get those people on Fiverr for a dime, and when they do the analysis, you can actually then hire those people somewhere in the world. You can then set up your business in Estonia, can actually do your payment through Hong Kong globally, and then they deliver automatically, that's Amazon FBA, from China to whatever FBA center in a different country where they automatically store that for you. And if people later on send it back, they even handle that and do the invoicing and payback and etc. That's a service that you can buy, and you can run your whole operations like that. The question is, did anyone earn money with that crap? Plenty. Like this guy, Erwin Dominguez from San Diego. He's obviously not living in San Diego right now, because this is a current picture. And he made, it's a steady business, he made within 8 months $1 million revenue, $1 million in that case, as a drop shipper, by just taking the products and selling them, not changing them. I like those guys. I really like, I have to say to the camera, Lucas, if you're going to see that, it's great to see you on that slide. You're really cool. Because Lucas on the, let me see, on the right-hand side, he's early 20s, and he actually makes, right now, $1 million a year revenue. I have the same procedure that I've seen. I mean, we are sitting here, I don't know how old you are in detail, but we're sitting here like, we have to be digital, blah, 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 blah. And a 20-year-old guy, you know, he's creating 1 million revenue. And he's not only doing that. Go to his website, and I like the quote. Traveling around the world and building companies, it's all about learning and self-empowerment. Didn't we talk about that yesterday, right? The educational part. And he's stateless, he doesn't live in a specific country anymore. And he also has his FBA Seller Academy. So it was a global convention, all done through a website with people from all over the world joining in while he was sitting, I think, somewhere in the Philippines, I don't know. And he hosted that conference, and he has a venture fund as well, etc., etc. There are a couple of people, and all of them, if you look at him and the surrounding of those young people, they're all like that. It's scary. It's scary as hell, because they're so fucking good in that. I'm still talking to a bunch of designers, right? So let's look how that looks in a design world. And now I can, no, I'm not revealing that yet. Let's look at this. We have some. Do you have a clue what that is? I don't want to know if it's good or bad.
Self-promotion?
It's self-promotion. But for what? What's the product?
It's subscription-based.
Somebody knows. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, it is. It's a subscription-based service, and if you go to the Instagram, you actually see it's about products. All of them are black. I can now reveal why I'm dressed black, right? Fergus is not. He's not a part of that because he's dressed black as well. What you can do is for $49 for the basic plan, a month, you actually get black clothing to your doorstep, no matter where you are. For $99, you're on the advanced plan, and for the digital plan is for free. You get some sound pieces on SoundCloud, etc. They have some DJs to do stuff. And you turn basically black over time. So you get black shoes, and you can read 1 per 6 months. You can get a jacket, 1 per 12 months. What's that? Socks with necklace, right? What's that? Bikini pantry. I'm not wearing both, sorry. A hat that is black, and if you are in the premium package, you actually get the cosmetics in black, the toothbrush in black. If you have to cut your hair, I apparently have to do that at parts still here. You can get that in black as well. And you see that the sign is, the company is called Lot 2046. We also have, by the way, a black tattoo machine that you get if you have a premium subscription service. And as GQ and a couple of others wrote about it, and we could argue, like, is something like Antisocial Social Club, you know, those hoodies just printed on Antisocial Social Club, selling for $200, $300 if it's worth a dime. But again, think about the possibility, because the guy who did that, Vadik Marmeladov, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, he lives in Shenzhen, China, and in Los Angeles. He's Russian. And he set up that company. It's a drop shipping business. And he's private labeling it. So he's actually picking the products in Shenzhen. And they're actually, quality-wise, they're okay, right? For $50. And you can configure the sizings. And he does custom-made. They have little messages on that for you. So he does private label it and sell it for that subscription service. He's running that company exactly as I described before. We don't see, hey, it's a drop shipping business and it goes out of X, Y, Z. You only know that if you dig deeper into that. And I think he's making a good dime out of it without, as one person probably, my assumption is being not really involved anymore after he set that up, right? And this is the kind of businesses, just one example as a dropshipping business. I could show you more examples, like for example, what if you don't want to have one place where you actually want to live, you want to have different bases, different playgrounds, and you rent out an Airbnb there. Okay, from a German perspective, you'll probably not be able to do that by law, but in a lot of countries, you can actually just rent it for 12 months and sub-rent. And you can earn money by that, and then you can fly between the different places, and then you have a business on Airbnb, right? And there are tools where you can actually automatically identify the best price because the hotel price is going up or whatever the surrounding. They immediately do that. You can get a house keeping service as a subscription model, etc. in most countries. So that's all doable. Coming back to Fergus yesterday, I mean, he just built his house, right? You can do whatever you want out of that one place. You can run a global business immediately, or you can even travel between wherever you like it the most. So, talking about the 10 flags, let's not fall into that trap and stick to an outdated model and have that default mentality. I get really annoyed by that. Because it's, I mean, where are we heading to? Like, everybody wants to be a consultant or digital or creative, and it's all like a mess and it's all the same, and then we differentiate just by the price. I mean, come up with something that is smarter. Come up with something that fits your specific country, where you can probably go together out of that room and you can be a 5-piece out of different countries and you can deliver something that is totally compatible towards a bigger company. Do that, please. Run a global business. Go where you're treated best. So that's all.